everybody, welcome to another exciting show of Data Exposed. My name is not Scott Klein. My name is Tillmann Eitelberg, and with me today is
Markus Raatz.
Matt Mason.
And Oliver Engels.
Perfect. Before we start, short introduction of you.
Yeah, let me start then. Yeah, I said already, I'm Markus Raatz, CEO of Ceteris, and we're a Microsoft partner, gold partner for business intelligence in Germany.
My name is Matt Mason. I work for Microsoft. I've been working on various data integration products at Microsoft since about 2006. Worked on SSIS, DQS, MDS, Power BI, Azure Data Factory, and now I'm actually back on the Power BI team.
Oliver Engels. I'm CEO of OH22, and I'm a data platform MVP.
Okay, perfect. So can you change the screen? Perfect. So on the PaaS Summit, many Microsoft sessions start with the claim, the box is back, and also with the claim, so happy together. So Matt, can you explain a bit what is the meaning of both claims?
Matt is happy.
Sure, yes, happy. Everybody's happy. We actually have, in the building where the BI team sits, these posters are all over the walls, just as a happy reminder that everybody's happy. So happy together. So I think it goes back to the overall shift that Microsoft went through with the focus on Azure. And I think there was a concern at the top that we really needed to get ahead of it, right? Get ahead of the whole cloud movement and everything moving to the cloud. And I think Microsoft's done a fantastic job at that. But if you imagine Microsoft or SQL Server as a massive ship moving forward, big boat, it's hard to just change direction immediately, right? Change course. And so I think it's been a slow shift for engineering practices, for release cadences, for everything. There's been a pretty drastic change over the past 3 years within Microsoft, the overall culture. So one, it was making sure that our cloud products, our infrastructure was ready to go and ready to face the future. And I think we've done that now that basically the Windows Azure SQL database is the same set of bits that ships in the box. Right? The team has gotten down to, it's not two separate products, it's actually the same, and they moved to that frequent release cadence. And we've actually done that now across all of the teams, some sooner than others, like the BI team, for example, with Power BI, and now they've sort of refocused a lot of their efforts to put out a really quality box release. And so I think we've seen with the SQL 2016 release, one of the most exciting things is the fact that we've actually come out with monthly CTP releases on an ongoing basis. And I remember when they first announced that they were going to do this about a year ago, I was really skeptical we ever could, because we were used to these really long 3-year release cycles. That was the box cycle. And so coming out with a box release on a cloud cadence, I think is an actual great engineering achievement internally, and we really think it's going to make customers happy to be seeing that delivered value month after month.
Okay. So, and Markus, for you as a partner, what does it mean for you?
I'm totally excited that the box is back, because, I mean, practically, when I talk to customers, of course, you know, when you talk to the IT department, very often when your CIO or CEO says that when you move a single byte to the Azure cloud, you're fired, then you can see all these great things that Microsoft did in the last few years, but you cannot participate. You're not part of the thing. Yeah, I mean, you'd love to. A lot of IT guys love to, really. I think they've done the shift to the cloud in their heads. They're actually much further than their bosses probably are. And of course, there are also companies where it's totally the other way around, where you say, well, you're fired when we don't move everything to the Azure cloud. Right. But, you know, a lot of customers, especially in Germany, they're so happy that now there are things coming from the cloud, exciting new functionality coming back to them in the box. And that's a huge achievement. I think this will be received with great happiness all over the world. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's another big engineering shift that we've hit with these box releases, or sorry, the cloud releases, is because they're service-based things, we get a lot of great telemetry about what features people care about, what issues they're hitting, like almost immediately. We have that customer experience opt-in with the box, but not everybody does it. We're not actually sure what the exact percentage of people who do it, so it's very hard to tell how frequently issues are hit and things like that. With the service, it's almost immediate, and so we actually get daily reports. What issues are people facing? What features are they using? Where should we be focusing our time? And that's really helped us shape the release well.
Okay. And for you, what is...
On the one side, I see it from a perspective of people who learned, like, for example, analysis service, MDX. reporting services, how to program that, integration service. So all the skills you normally need to build on that boxed product. So now, with 2012, 2014, a lot of people saw, okay, everything which I can do really good, there's no much investment in there. You were crying that your lovely analysis service.
2014, nothing
happened. Yeah, and a lot of people were like this because this is their heart blood, they invest, and so on. And then, for example, on the past summit, then we say, hey, there's a reporting service session. What's new in reporting service? And Ricardo, it was like he was a gladiator, and the room was completely filled up with people. Nobody had the chance. And I know that Jörg, your colleague Jörg,
in Germany.
The room was completely filled up. No more places, because people want to know what's going on with reporting services.
Because it's accessible to them.
Exactly.
They can use it when they get home. As soon as they get the box product, no boss would ever harm them for using the latest version.
Exactly. Right. And this kind of thing is, hey, this is my learning curve. I know I'm looking for features since 3-4 years, which we now have. And this is the stuff which I love, and so the motivation to get into that is massive.
And you get it in a high quality because it has already been tested in the cloud before.
Yes. Exactly.
Okay, then let's talk a little bit about reporting services. So I think one of the most visible changes in the new version is the integration of DataZen and Power BI into reporting services.
Yes.
So Markus, can you explain a bit the benefits of these integrations?
Yeah, well, first of all, I must say that was the first sign of the box is back. The first sign was actually the fact that Microsoft acquired DataZen and then publicly announced, hey, we have a story now for mobile reporting, and you don't need to use the cloud for that. I mean, look at the new Power BI apps. They are fantastic. They do a very great job, but it means that you have to move to the cloud. So for many customers, it's still not accessible. And when they heard that there's DataZen and that it's included in SQL Server Premium Editions with an enterprise agreement, they were like, great, because before that you had to pay thousands of dollars to actually buy a product that does the same thing.
Yeah, it's really like this. It's a kind of trigger that people. I don't want to be too critical to our friends from Microsoft, but it was a trigger like people saying, "Hey," it was before even the box is back. It was a trigger saying, "Hey, there is a shift. There is something which happens," and with this kind of sign, people understood, "Hey, all our invests are still valid, and we can go like this."
And Kamal Hati visited us here in Germany, and he told us at a very early stage, especially the partners, he said, you know, Microsoft now wants to really benefit from the fact that they can, like no other vendor, they have a full BI suite in the cloud, and they have it on premises, and the customer is ready to choose. And that's great, and no one else can do that. And that's something that they really have to reap now.
Well, so actually, I think that you use an interesting word is choose. And so what I think we need to work towards is where the customer doesn't choose. And whether it's cloud or on-prem or box, it's just a matter of deployment and deployment choice.
That would be great.
Right? So the technology just stays the same, and it's just a matter of infrastructure, and where the infrastructure lives.
And that would be unique selling.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
But you asked him about reporting services.
Yeah, but Matt said that the customer has not to choose a product, and then it's a question, why do we have still two different products like reporting services and Power BI?
Because it takes a long time to build a product that can work in both, right? And so you can either build a feature with half the amount, product with half the amount of features that targets both, or you can have a full solution in one or the other. I think it's over time, it's sort of, it's hedging our bets, right? We knew the box product already has a big following. It is very good. We're betting on Power BI and the cloud-related things. Now it's a matter of merging them both together. We've seen that they're actually both successful. We know the strengths. We know which customers want to do what where, and so we're able to balance our investments that way and build it properly.
But Tillmann, if you see the signs, for example, if you look at DataZen and you see, let's say, for example, just a small example, but it gives you a clear indication. You see, hey, we have DataZen has special visualization, But now you see in the next things, hey, these visualizations change to something which is from Power BI. It looks like Power BI. So people get trust in it that they are on the right road to using the box product, combining it with cloud stuff, doing the hybrid thing, and this kind of trust, for me, this is the much important thing of this whole initiative. No matter what kind of functionality is in there, but this kind of getting the trust back is, for me, the box is back.
Okay, so then back to my first question. What are the most benefits of reporting services in the new version for you?
Well, it's hard to say. I mean, I think the main thing for me was to see that there are really investments in the engine of reporting services. That, for example, this HTML5 thing or so, because it's foremost, it's an indication that reporting services is a product that has a huge advantage of being accessible and programmable via web services very easily, and that's why it's so hugely popular, because people use it and integrate it in their applications, in their whatever websites. Because it's so easy to integrate. And you can see now that integration for Power BI pops up in a similar way. Right now, it's not yet that easy, but it's coming up. And the most important thing is really that inside reporting services, there were a lot of things happening that actually improved again. And there you can still use the same web services to access it from the outside. So the investment that everyone makes, and what people have learned working for years with reporting services, they are still valid. And now the general saying, again, you have this paginated reports, nice word. I wonder if that existed before.
Yeah, well, it did.
Really? Was it? I'm not sure.
I used to work for a previous BI vendor, and that was the code that I wrote, was pagination of reports.
Nice.
Yes. You did everything.
We're not going to name the vendor here.
I've worked everywhere.
Yeah.
Yes.
But you have this differentiation between paginated reports on the one hand, and then dynamic reporting analysis on the other side. And this is not going to go away. I mean, people have learned this, and in the future, they will keep asking, okay, I want to use Microsoft or maybe something else, but what do I really want? Do I want the paginated report? Do I want it more analysis stuff like, and that you have two different types of products for each is totally normal, and it's a good idea. And of course, reporting services is bringing that together in a way, like when you have a huge investment in reporting services reports, and it is complicated to create them, that you can now just pin them to your Power BI dashboard. I mean, that's really something. Again, it shows you're on the right track.
Exactly.
Yeah. Again, what I would personally like to see is that where it's not just a forced choice. If you choose one path or the other, they can still merge. So I can see things like for reporting services in Power BI, sharing the same sort of data connectivity stack, right? Or way you build your queries becomes the exact same, right? Imagine moving the Power Query experience that we use in Power BI Desktop to reporting services, right? We'll be able to share queries between, share visualizations, right? The custom visualizations that we have now in Power BI, being able to share across products. I don't know where that is on the roadmap, but I can imagine heading, kind of converging all the technologies together, and it just becomes a matter of what tools you like to use. I mean, sort of the .NET approach, right? If you like coding in VB.NET or C#, they both compile down to the same underlying bytecode.
Okay, so next to reporting services, we see a huge amount of changes and new features in master data services. I think it's the biggest release on master data service since 2008.
Yep, it's it then.
Could you briefly introduce the important features for MDS 2016?
Sure, yeah. We actually put in a lot of effort into master data services. I know a lot of people got worried when there was no changes in 2014. Really, 2014 originally was meant to be just a purely engine release. That's really what it was focused on. So most of the other products, most of the teams were prototyping web, sort of like cloud-based products, as well as working on some of our newer cloud data integration technologies. So now in 2016, MDS has seen a big investment. I think the biggest improvement that people will see just by upgrading is the performance stuff. It's about a 15x performance improvement for certain Excel scenarios. There's performance improvements all across all MDS scenarios. A lot of the code was rewritten. We basically rewrote a lot of the Excel code, a lot of the communication code, a lot of the back-end code to really optimize it. Other big features would be the many-to-many hierarchies and mapping. There's a brand new web UI. They've redone the admin portal.
And the old one was pretty much 80s.
Yes, yes, I did an MDS session earlier today, and I said that we've received actual feedback from customers saying that they thought the MDS web UI was built by an intern, and that actually is pretty much close to the truth. But
and it must have been a 60-year-old intern, because saving is really such a huge old-fashioned symbol for a floppy disk.
Yes, cool. Yes. So yes, we've been actually working with the web designer and been doing some usability feedback studies, all the things that we usually do to make sure that the web UI worked really well. So yeah, they changed the way hierarchies work, changed the way, or improved the way hierarchies work, I should say. We've updated the business rule editor, so brand new business rule editor, as well as some new operators, so not and else statements. Custom SQL in the business rules, I think, is one of the big things people get excited about. So if the built-in business rules don't do what you need to do, you can add the custom SQL logic to both validate business rules as well as actions that are taken when a business rule is submitted. Yeah, I think those are the big ones that come to mind. Were there any other ones that you guys were excited about? Come out and hit them all?
The business rules in SQL, and really, from our testing, the performance, it's not marketing, it's really much faster.
Yeah.
But for you as Microsoft partners, how important is master data service for you?
Well, actually, if you tried to show it to customers in the old days, that was tough, because they start loading a decent amount of data in it, and they often have pretty complicated structures, like 50, 60,000 products, and then they like to handle this, put it in hierarchies and so on, and then the performance wasn't good enough. The Excel experience was simply not what they expected. So that was a bit of an issue. So I'd like to have it as a kind of self-service master data management to put it out to business users or anyone who's responsible for maintaining data. That was not really possible. Mm-hmm. But we were using it heavily as a simple, let's say, as a simple editor of master data without any programming on top. You could, for example, for technical things like whatever, like changing the sequence when integration services packages have to be run or so, you can easily build an interface when you say, oh, do this and that, and then save, and it works. So it's more like a simple editor. It used to be more like a simple editor on top of SQL files in Excel or even in the web interface.
Right, yeah. Internally, I've seen MDS used more and more from different teams. Basically, anytime you need to manage a list of data in Excel. Right?
Better than the SharePoint list.
Better than SharePoint list. And the main feature people like is the domain-based attributes. So you have the drop-down list, so it's not free form, right? So people are limited. It makes it very clear what you're supposed to select. And I've done some, there's some very interesting things you can do with custom rules in terms of when things get set and automatically setting other values. Filtered attributes is the other big thing in 2016, where if you set a hierarchy, so for example, your entity has country and cities, and you select country, only the cities within that country would show up with a list of valid values, which is great when you're managing entities or with hierarchies with a lot of members in them.
I think we have to tell the audience this is not an MDS session but the point is that a lot of people don't know MDS yet. And I think the power of this kind of tool is absolutely underestimated, and that I hope that with all the changes you did, I think that this kind of tool set will have a much bigger role in the stack we have on the box than before.
That brings us to the next question, because I mean, it's an enterprise feature, and a lot of people would love to have a feature like this, but they don't have the enterprise edition. That would have been a great bait to get them to the cloud. They'd love to be able to use that in the cloud, and the functionality should be there, isn't it? I mean, why not?
So yeah, that is interesting. So we actually did look at skewing issues and how to do the skewing. And this, for 2016, we decided not to make any changes. We have also looked at a cloud-based MDS and what that would look like. Whether that would be just a feature as part of SQL, whether that would be a separate platform offering and things like that. But really, the past 2 years, we really wanted to make sure the box release was perfect. Right? We focused our investment there. Now that we're getting close to wrapping up, we still want to devote time to releasing updates to the Excel add-in, which we'll be able to do on a more frequent cadence. We still want to continue to improve the UI and stuff, but I think we will take some of our team's resources to actually try out and actually do something cloud-related. It just makes sense. There is that need for it, for very lightweight master data systems that come up. I can imagine similar capabilities surfacing in a product like Azure Data Catalog.
Yeah.
Right? I think that would be the natural place for it.
In a few years.
So let's look a little bit in the future. So do you think that with SQL Server 2018++, something like that, we will have the claim the box continues and we get a new features in DQS?
And DQS, yes, data quality services. I was really hoping that we'd be able to do some things. We basically had to make the hard choice of, do we invest in all three of the EIM suite, or do we really focus on MDS? And overall adoption, we've seen MDS usage continue to grow. Even in 2014, even though there weren't many changes, we've seen it steadily picking up. I think, like Oliver said, it's one of those hidden gems. DQS usage has sort of remained flat. The thing I say today is, if DQS solves your problems today, fantastic. It does work well in a lot of different scenarios. Fortunately, there are no new features in 2016. I think the team is still figuring out where we're going to head with DQS. Data quality is definitely an ongoing issue everywhere. One of the interesting things we find is that the majority of customers don't use a dedicated data quality tool. They will roll their own, right? They will create their own solution built with different processes and things like that. So we're still trying to figure out how to get those, the common patterns that people do into an easy-to-use product like DQS and move it forward. I can imagine leveraging a lot of the new cloud services coming out, or capabilities like they have in the Power Query or Power BI desktop that make it very easy to shape and massage your data and turn those into ongoing rules. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Wow. So yesterday, Oliver and I had a session about different data movement, data transformation technologies like ADF, Atlas, USQL, and so on. And feedback from the audience was that integration services is not so agile like you in the cloud. So when do you think we get functionalities we have on the cloud like USQL, R, or on-prem into integration services?
Integration services is easy to extend, as you know. So we've seen a lot of Azure connectivity packs. So we released the Azure component packs that give Azure Blob connectivity and a for each enumerator, as well as a bunch of HD Insight tasks. So those came out, released for 2012, 2014, and 2016 packs. There's also Hadoop components and things like that. I think what we're going to see is the team has mostly been focused on box and engine features that need to go into the release, and they can release newer components for the cloud out of band. Right? Those are the easier things. So priority-wise, we want to get those done up front, and then we can continue to do out-of-band releases after that. That's why you see most of the focus for the 2016 release on the SSIS side has really been for the major or potentially breaking changes, the big changes in the designer, for example, like the features that we're working on, like being able to support multiple versions and things like that, which should be coming out before RTM, hopefully.
Oh.
Yeah. And then, yes, and so I do see things like USQL, like better R support. There's some blog posts out there on how to use SSIS with the R capabilities today, more through execute SQL task, but I can imagine more advanced integration going forward.
But are you ever going to get a graphical integration tool? I mean, graphical-like integration services but in the cloud?
So, about your choice, so you're talking about BI, right? The choice of cloud or on-prem. Data integration is, I strongly believe that shouldn't be a choice if it's cloud or on-prem. Again, that becomes down to infrastructure, right? We see more and more hybrid development today. My ideal would be a combination of ADF and SSIS going forward as a single data integration solution, right? ADF today is actually closer to SQL Agent. People compare it to SSIS because it copies and moves data, but actually it's more of an orchestrator, right? It runs different activities, it has its schedule. It can run SQL statements, it can run copy jobs, things like that. Very much like SQL Agent. So I actually describe ADF more as SQL Agent in the cloud.
Well, we should put that into our session next time.
SQL Agent in the cloud.
Because we kicked ADF in a certain way because we said, hey, it's really not It's just orchestration.
Right. It's not an ETL tool. It's not a transformation engine, but it can run statements against other ETL tools and transformation engines. And so you can sort of imagine how ADF and SSIS might be combined, right? I could imagine the visual design layout from ADF and the nice design surface being an orchestration layer on top of SSIS, right? So you can orchestrate your SSIS packages. Maybe you can choose where they run. They run either an on-prem, an SSIS catalog. They could run on a dynamic SSIS catalog that we spin up for you, right? I think there's a lot of different options there. What the ADF team has done really well at is working closely with customers to address feedback. They really targeted. This goes back a couple of years when ADF was still being developed. They tried to build a very broad solution. The team that was originally working on it came out of Bing, and Bing had lots of different data integration, interesting data integration technology. The thing was, the original product they came out with probably only appealed to Bing developers. It was a very small percentage of the Microsoft user base. It was very complex, very powerful, but didn't have any sort of UI. I remember actually having a meeting with them early on where they said, we don't think our customers want a graphical user interface. And I didn't know who they were talking about.
Yeah, that's it.
So since then, they're trying to focus on vertical scenarios. So right now, their main scenario is really with the big data processing, right? To grab data on-prem, load it to a data lake or some sort of cloud data store, call machine learning, call HD Insight, kick off Hive jobs, do processing using stored procedures maybe. But we do have a lot of customers, especially internally at Microsoft. There are many teams using ADF to do end-to-end flows where they're not really doing transformation, or they've already written their transformation scripts and are using other engines to do it. So yeah, like I said, I definitely see in the future, I think one of the biggest feedback we've gotten for ADF is the need for a real graphic authoring tool. You will be seeing things like that rolling out soon. They have a copy experience that's going to be coming out very soon, or it might already be out actually, where it's very simple, source to the destination copy, you'll generate your pipeline. Again, that really appeals to the data lake scenario where you're copying data from one place to another. You can see them expanding on that as well in the drag and drop. And then the main question that we've been having internally is, when do we combine the products? And how do we combine the products? And how far do we continue with each product before we combine them? So I think there's a lot of feedback. I think we'll see how 2016 goes, how it's received, how the existing changes in SSIS go.
Well, one thing, just a feedback, let's say from the community. If we asked our audience, hey, who is using what? And I think you know that as well, is that integration service as such, everybody raised their hand. So this is a massive user base, and it's the same thing with SSRS. It's the same thing with AS. The box users are still the majority of developer. So your idea to bring that, to connect that together, is from a strategy point of view, from my point of view, the right way to go, because you will get the support from the community in this way, definitely, because this is the user base.
Right.
Correct. But if you talk to the user, so many users see a lack of consistency in basic concepts of SSIS. So we talk about Azure Blob Storage and its complete different editor to access text files as on Blob on-prem. Do you think that SSIS will get better UI in the future, more consistency?
SSIS or?
SSIS.
SSIS, better UIs, yes. This has always been a challenge on the SSIS team, is how much do we focus on the UIs and improving that versus the core engine? How much do we rely on partners to plug in the different solutions? There's a lot of great SSIS solutions from our partners. And so I'm not sure where we're going to go post 2016. I think there's going to be two main paths. We can either focus fully on combining and building that one unified data integration experience across cloud and on-prem, or we can continue treating them as two separate user bases or two separate scenarios with minor data integration in between. I can imagine a very simple integration where you have Azure Data Factory and you have SSIS, and you can maybe call an SSIS package or invoke SSIS catalog capabilities from ADF, but no real combined design experience, right? That is maybe a click stop or a stopgap that we can do along the way, but I'd much rather see the team really focus on just combining it into a single data integration solution where you're not choosing. You can, my vision is to be able to, you design your solution and then you can drag areas. This is going to run in the cloud, and this is going to run on-prem. And the lines all stay the same. It's just your compute
Do you need a
changes.
supporter for your vision? You got me.
There's many people I talk to daily that support that same vision. It's a lot easier to say than it is to actually
Absolutely.
code.
Yeah.
The other interesting thing about Data Factory that people really don't call out much is the fact that it does run in every Azure data center, right? So if you are doing global deployments, if you have data in different places, ADF will move your copy jobs to the closest place to your data and things like that. So there is a massive infrastructure behind ADF, and that's really what we've been focused on. I think going forward, we can improve on the tooling and stuff to make it work.
Okay. And you as partners, do you see really a need for SaaS in the cloud combined with ADF or?
Definitely. There must be. I mean, we've been trying hard to make simple copy jobs work with ADF, and up to now we weren't that happy in most cases. And it's a fundamental part of any BI solution. Yeah, and so there's really something missing here. And if you see the excellent graphical interfaces that we've done for Azure Machine Learning, for example, everybody's immediately reminded of integration services because that was the first tool that actually showed you graphically how to program these things, how to put it together. And then if you look at the immediate feedback that you get when you do data integration with Power Query or M, then you can actually see, hey, wow, I'm kind of doing something to my data. You can actually see what happens when you look at it, and in the end, what you get is a script that can be run basically anywhere. So definitely, there's the problem will probably be that nobody wants to lose anything because integration services is so powerful and has this beautiful visualization. You don't want to lose that. I mean,
and you have to imagine where we are. We are in a phase where we are more coming into hybrid scenario. We are not in the cloud yet, and not some of us are in the cloud, but the majority of people are still. And that's the reason why the box is back is so famous, and people are really happy about it. But it means that we are in this kind of transition. And the more Microsoft supports transition functionality in terms like Matt just said, hey, I just choose if this runs in the cloud or if this runs on-prem. And I can still do that with my knowledge, and it's just clicking a button or seeing what kind of transformation I have. This is what we also as partner, it makes our life easier to explain to the customer, hey, you are flexible, and everything you want to do, you will do that. And maybe not everything is in place, but as we talked about RS, it is something we can see for the future. So from a roadmap perspective. So that's the reason why I really appreciate what Matt just said, because that's from my personal opinion, and I remember I told that the product team 2 years ago, that this is the way to go.
So I have a question for you guys in terms of design experience and design surface and where you'd actually want this. Would you want a web-based data integration tool or a Visual Studio-based integration tool?
Honestly, Visual Studio. And if you ask the community what they want in this way, so that the only reason why I like a little bit ADF is I can now do the JSON in Visual Studio and can deploy it. It's not because I don't like web editors, but honestly, I find it more useful to have it in Visual Studio. I imagine, because you just mentioned Azure ML, for me personally, I would love to do that in Visual Studio, but I know that the target group at that time was, okay, the data scientist, and they maybe hate Visual Studio. Maybe they come back to Visual Studio now with our integration, but that's a different story. But for me, always this starts, I want to have something on my desktop where I can decide this goes to on-prem server, this goes to the cloud, or this is a hybrid thing.
I would have voted for a web interface. I mean, I love Visual Studio and to use integration services in there, but really I've seen competitor products that give you a similar experience in the web, and then, hey, why not have it? It actually gives you more flexibility. Visual Studio is not always that much fun to use, so a nice web interface, if it's really interactive, like machine learning is, go for it.
Okay, so you see, The community is not with the same opinion here.
That is basically the answers we get anytime we ask the customer. That we split, and some feel very strongly one way or another. Right? And so
I'm very strongly Visual Studio.
Yes, exactly.
Markus, come on.
But yeah, so I think that's one of the challenges that we're going to hit. Ideally,
can we have both?
Ideally, we would have both. And so actually, some of the technology that we've been investing in, like the Azure Data Factory design surface, for example, is the same one that runs in the cloud within the Azure portal, that visualization, as it does in Visual Studio. Right. So we're betting on those technologies that are able to host in different environments. Things like VS Code and the things that it came up with to do even cross-platform development. So it definitely is a new Microsoft in that we are constantly thinking of every platform that people might want to, just to not exclude a certain audience.
As you said, when the first Azure Data Factory version came out and had no graphical interface whatsoever, actually I have a developer as well who checked out the first version and he says, it has no interface, but who needs an interface? He was, just like you said, they're totally happy without. And I was like, no, but this is not Microsoft. If it doesn't have an interface, it's not Microsoft.
No, if it doesn't have a wizard.
There's a wizard too, yes. And now we have a copy wizard in ADF.
I saw that.
Okay, so the last question, an SSES question again. It's one of the biggest features in SSES is templates.
Yes.
And there is always a big discussion on templates, especially using templates or execute package tasks, and also why building templates in SSES and not invest in something like BIML or Easy Package. So first for partners, what do you think about templates and to automate integration services?
Well, automation of integration services is somewhat a large part of our business. I mean, definitely it's a great stuff that you can actually go into the packages and automate that. That has to be done for large projects every time. So that would be one thing that we would need to have, even in the cloud. We get to be able to automate this, to take it apart, put it together, not manually, but use a script or some kind of technology like that. So that's something we would need in the first place.
Okay.
Templates. So I have a habit of saying things that the SSIS team doesn't necessarily agree with, or my views don't necessarily match what the SSIS team's views are. At this point, control flow templates, I'm not sure I would use them for the majority of scenarios. I think execute package task, that's essentially what the templates as they are now, what they're equivalent to. And I find execute package task gives you more flexibility. My concern is that the templates, as the way they are now, at least in CTP 3.3, they meet certain scenarios, but because they lack certain features like the ability to provide property expressions, and they don't quite work right with connection managers and things like that, I think many customers will try to go down that path and end up in a bad state. What templates do work well for is actually the main scenario that I've seen them used for is times where you are, there's that classic pattern when you're doing Hadoop or HD Insight automation, where you are spinning up your cluster, you are running some set Hive scripts, and then you're shutting your cluster down. And the only values you're changing are the path to the different Hive scripts that are running, right? The rest of the flow stays the same. I've seen templates used very successfully there. And the other good thing about templates is the fact that you can save them out to a shared directory and do a soft link to them from Visual Studio. So add a reference rather than copying them in. So you can actually have a shared set of templates. The SIS team has gotten great feedback about the templates. They are working on and making some improvements prior to RTM. I'm hoping they can continue iterating on it. As it stands now, the feature had been scoped very big, would include data flow templates and everything like that. As they started implementing, they realized the complexities that go into data flow templates. Given the time constraints, they scaled it back to what they have now, and I think they need to go just a bit further to make it a more usable feature. But yeah, at this point in the CTPs, I'm reserving my judgment, but I tend to not recommend heading down the template path. As for BIML, I'm a big fan of BIML. I think it's a fantastic technology. I'd say that it doesn't appeal to the vast majority of SSIS users who like the visual interface, who want the drag and drop. I think BIML is a bit too, it's learning another programming language, right? It's learning another language and understanding how it works. But for anybody who is building more than one data warehouse. For anybody who is doing frequent revisions of a data warehouse, I think it is worth that time, that investment to learn it once, because it will definitely pay off going forward. Yeah.
Okay, so Oliver, what do you think about package automation?
You're more the manual type.
Yes.
You like to do it by
I
hand.
have a different opinion of it, and of course, from my perspective, BIML is the version I would use. Definitely. Of course, I would expect from Microsoft to get more into this kind of enterprise features for integration service, because the competitors have these functionalities, which everybody loves integration service, but there is this kind of enterprise way where if you love it, you want to build a lot of stuff with it, and you get to a certain point where even we now have the possibility to deploy a single package again and so on. But there are so many things where we see it's not what the enterprise in full scope want. Yeah, so in terms of, we built in our own company a lot of frameworks around that with the old version of integration service, and there are some of these concepts which are still missing. However, I absolutely agree to Matt. People, if they start developing something like templates, I can imagine that this is really an absolutely complex thing to do. So it will take time to get it.
I don't want them to end up like the KPI templates in SQL Server analysis services. And I have to mention analysis services here because no one ever did.
Exactly.
There's one thing.
I just want to focus this.
Thank you. Because inside analysis services for KPIs, there is an interface where you have templates for those KPIs, and you never see it because it's you have to click at least once to get to a whole folder of templates. And I once, like years ago, for the first time, I looked inside this folder. I was working with the product for 3 or 4 years, never looked inside the folder. Then I started to look inside and said, oh, wow, such an amount of work. Boah, they must have done such a lot to build and maintain these templates. I think nobody ever used them. Nobody ever. Yeah. So you have to make sure, I mean, when they're available, they must be, visible, clear to the eye, and it must be apparent to everyone, hey, I'd rather start with the template than just doing it all from scratch.
Yeah.
That's true.
Okay, so then I think we are finished.
Yep.
Everything more to the box is back?
We need to finish. Of course, we can talk a lot on analysis service, tabular, and so on, because there's also a lot of stuff going on there in the box. But we know that our panel host is more an integration service and the S-fan. So sorry, guys. This kind of focus on the box is back is more AES-centric. Yeah. Of course, with Markus as an SSAS guy. You went well with us.
I tried to blend in.
Yeah, okay. You were polite.
I tried to speed you up like analysis services usually does and give you an easier structure.
Yeah. So look at the features of analysis server in SQL Server 2016. That's definitely a thing you have to do.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Thank you.